Elena Gray didn't die quickly. She felt every second of it. The cold rain soaking through her clothes, the mud sticking to her skin, the taste of iron in her mouth as she struggled to breathe. Above her, the sky was dark, but not as dark as the eyes looking down at her. Olivia Gray, her sister, the girl who had stolen her life. Olivia stood there, perfectly composed, her white dress untouched by the mud, her expression calm, almost bored. Behind her, two men stepped back after pushing Elena down the slope. They didn't need to do anything else. Elena was already dying. "Help me!" Elena's voice cracked, barely audible. Her fingers dug into the wet ground, trying to pull herself up, but her body refused to respond. Olivia tilted her head slightly, as if she was observing something mildly interesting. Then she smiled. "My dear sister," she said softly, her voice almost gentle. "Your father, your brother, even Kai Blake, all of them chose me." The name hit harder than the fall. Kai Blake, the man Elena once believed would stand by her. The man who had looked at her with warmth just days ago. Now he wasn't here. Olivia took a step closer, careful not to dirty her shoes. "Do you know why?" she continued, lowering her voice. "Because I am the one who belongs here. You were always a mistake." Elena's vision blurred, but her mind was suddenly sharp. Something was wrong. This wasn't just jealousy. This wasn't just hatred. "Why?" she forced out. Olivia's smile widened just a little. "Because we knew." The words froze everything. Father knew. Lucas knew. "From the very beginning," Olivia said, almost casually, "that you were the real daughter." For a moment, Elena forgot the pain. Forgot the cold. Forgot everything. Her mind went blank. "No," she whispered. "Yes." Olivia crouched down, finally meeting her at eye level. "But what's the point of bringing you back? You had no value, no connections, no use." Each word was a blade. "So we kept things the way they were. It was more convenient." Elena's chest tightened, not from the injury, but from something far worse. They knew. Her father, Richard Gray, the man she had longed for her entire life. Her brother, Lucas Gray, who had never once defended her. They had known who she was, and they chose Olivia anyway. "Now," Olivia continued, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear, "you came back and started causing trouble. Looking for affection, looking for a place in this family." She laughed softly. It was embarrassing to watch. Elena's fingers curled into the mud. "I didn't push you," she said, remembering the incident earlier that day, when Olivia had framed her again in front of everyone. "It doesn't matter," Olivia replied. "No one believed you then. No one will believe you now." She stood up, her expression returning to that flawless, untouchable calm. "You should have stayed in the countryside," she said. "Then maybe you could have lived a little longer." Elena tried to move, tried to speak, but her strength was gone. The rain grew heavier, washing away the last traces of warmth from her body. Olivia turned around, already losing interest. "Bury her properly," she told the men. As if Elena was nothing more than trash. As footsteps faded, Elena lay there, staring at the sky. The rain hit her face, mixing with the tears she could no longer feel. So this was the truth. Not a misunderstanding. Not bad luck. She wasn't abandoned by accident. She was discarded on purpose. A slow, bitter laugh rose in her chest, but it came out as a weak breath. "How ridiculous," she murmured. "All those years. All that pain. All those desperate attempts to be accepted. Meaningless." Her vision dimmed further, the world turning into shadows. But in that final moment, something inside her changed. If there was another chance, if she could go back, "I won't beg again." Her voice was barely there, but her mind was screaming. "I'll take everything back." Darkness swallowed her whole. Elena opened her eyes. She inhaled sharply, her body jerking upright. Air filled her lungs too fast, too sudden, as if she had just been dragged out of deep water. Her heart pounded violently. She was alive. Her hands moved instinctively, touching her face, her arms, her chest. No wounds. No blood. No mud. The rain was gone. Instead, she was standing at the entrance of a grand mansion. The Gray residence. Elena froze. Her eyes slowly scanned the familiar gates, the long driveway, the towering building she once thought of as home. No, she whispered. This place. This moment. She knew it. The day she returned from the countryside. The beginning of everything. Her fingers trembled slightly, but her expression changed. The panic in her eyes faded, replaced by something colder. Sharper. Footsteps approached from inside. The door opened. A middle-aged man stepped out first, his posture straight, his expression unreadable. Richard Gray. Her father. Behind him stood a young man with a composed face and distant eyes. Lucas Gray. And then, Elena. A soft, gentle voice. Olivia Gray stepped forward, her smile warm, her eyes filled with what looked like concern. The same smile. The same mask. Welcome home, little sister, Olivia said. For a brief second, silence stretched between them. Elena looked at her. Really looked. At the girl who had just killed her. At the girl who had stolen her life. At the girl who stood there, pretending to be kind. Something dark flickered in Elena's eyes. But then, she smiled. Not weak. Not hopeful. Cold. Controlled. Thank you, Elena said calmly. I've been looking forward to coming back. Richard nodded slightly, already losing interest. You'll stay here for now, he said. Don't cause trouble. Lucas didn't speak. He simply glanced at her, as if trying to figure something out, then looked away. Olivia stepped closer, lowering her voice, just enough for only Elena to hear. You should behave yourself, she whispered sweetly. This is my home. Elena didn't react. Instead, she leaned in slightly and whispered back, her voice soft but razor-sharp. Not for long. Olivia's smile froze for a fraction of a second. It was subtle, but Elena saw it, and that was enough. As she walked past them and into the mansion, Elena's gaze swept across everything, the hall, the stairs, the people who once ignored her existence. Nothing had changed, but she had. This time, she wouldn't beg for love. This time, she wouldn't wait to be accepted. This time, she would make them regret ever letting her come back. Elena Gray stepped into the mansion as if she had never left, but every step carried a different weight now. The marble floor beneath her feet was spotless, the air faintly scented, the lighting warm and inviting, yet none of it felt like home. It never had. In her past life, she had stood in this exact place with hope in her chest, believing that if she tried hard enough, if she was obedient enough, she could earn a place here. Now she knew better. This house didn't reward sincerity. It rewarded control. A maid approached quietly and took her small suitcase without a word. No greeting, no acknowledgement. Just routine. Elena watched her for a second, then shifted her gaze toward the staircase. She remembered exactly what would happen next. Follow me, Olivia said gently, already turning without waiting for a response. Elena didn't hesitate. She followed. Richard Gray had already walked away, uninterested. Lucas lingered for a moment at the base of the stairs, his eyes briefly meeting Elena's. There was something there. Uncertainty, maybe curiosity, but it disappeared just as quickly. He turned and left without saying a word. That was fine. Lucas Gray was never cruel in obvious ways. He was worse. He chose silence. Olivia led Elena down a hallway that grew quieter the further they went. The decorations became simpler, the lighting dimmer, until they reached a door at the end. Olivia stopped and opened it. This will be your room for now, she said. Elena looked inside. Small, bare, clean, but clearly not meant for a member of the family. It was a servant's room, exactly like last time. In her previous life, she had hesitated. She had felt humiliated, confused, hurt, but she had still nodded, still accepted it, thinking it was temporary. Now, she stepped inside without a pause. It's fine, Elena said calmly. I'm used to worse. Olivia blinked, just slightly. That wasn't the reaction she expected. I'll have someone prepare better things for you later, Olivia continued, her tone still soft, still perfect. After I sort everything out. Elena turned to look at her. No need, she said. I don't want to trouble you. There was a quiet politeness in her voice, but something underneath it made Olivia uncomfortable. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Olivia smiled again. Rest well, she said, before closing the door. The second the door shut, the smile disappeared. Elena stood still in the center of the room, listening to the faint echo of footsteps fading away. Then she let out a slow breath and walked toward the bed. Same position, same layout. She reached down and touched the edge of the mattress. In her past life, this was where everything began to fall apart. The isolation, the humiliation, the slow realization that no one in this house would ever stand on her side. Her fingers tightened slightly. "Not this time," she murmured. Dinner that evening was exactly as Elena remembered. A long table, perfectly arranged dishes, soft lighting, and an atmosphere that looked warm from the outside but felt hollow once you sat down. Elena took her seat quietly. Richard sat at the head of the table, already eating. Lucas was beside him, focused on his plate. Olivia sat across from Elena, her posture elegant, her expression gentle. No one spoke to Elena. Not at first. A servant placed food in front of her. She picked up her utensils calmly, not waiting for permission, not looking for acknowledgement. In her previous life, she had hesitated here too. She had waited, unsure of the rules, afraid of making a mistake. Now she didn't care. Lucas was the first to break the silence. "She just got back," he said, his tone neutral, but directed at Richard. "Shouldn't we at least?" "She needs to learn the rules first," Richard cut in, not even looking up. "This is not the countryside." The words were simple, but the meaning was clear. "You don't belong here." Elena continued eating, her expression unchanged. Olivia placed a piece of food onto Richard's plate with a soft smile. "Don't be too harsh," she said gently. "She's still adjusting." Then she turned to Elena. "If you don't understand something, you can ask me." It sounded kind. It sounded caring. But Elena knew what it really was. Control. "I will," Elena replied. Short, polite, empty. Olivia studied her for a second. Something felt off. This wasn't the same girl who had returned in her memory. That girl had been cautious, desperate to please, easy to read. This Elena was quiet. Too quiet. Lucas noticed it too. His gaze lingered on Elena a little longer this time, as if trying to find something familiar in her, but failing. "Where did you learn your table manners?" he asked suddenly. Elena looked up. The question wasn't kind, but it wasn't cruel either. It was probing. "From watching," she said. Lucas raised an eyebrow slightly. "Watching." Elena nodded. "You don't need to be taught everything directly to understand it." For a brief moment, their eyes met. Lucas didn't respond, but he didn't look away immediately either. Olivia noticed that, and she didn't like it. Later that night, Elena stood by the window in her room, looking out at the dark garden. The house was quiet now. This was the part people never saw. The silence behind the perfect image. Her reflection stared back at her from the glass. Same face, different eyes. In her past life, she had spent nights like this wondering what she had done wrong. Wondering why she wasn't enough. Now she knew. It was never about her. It was about value. Footsteps stopped outside her door. Elena didn't turn. A second later, there was a soft knock. "Are you awake?" Olivia's voice came through, gentle as ever. "Come in," Elena said. The door opened, and Olivia stepped inside. She wasn't smiling this time. Not fully. She closed the door behind her and walked closer, her gaze fixed on Elena. "You've changed," Olivia said quietly. Elena turned to face her. "Have I?" she replied. Olivia studied her carefully. "You're not reacting the way I expected." There it was. No pretense. Just for a moment. Elena tilted her head slightly. "What kind of reaction were you expecting?" Olivia didn't answer immediately. Then she smiled again, but it was thinner now. "Nothing," she said. "Just don't forget your place." Elena took a step closer. Not aggressive, not defensive, just enough to close the distance. "And where exactly is that?" she asked softly. Olivia's eyes flickered. For the first time, there was a trace of something else in them. Unease. "Don't push your luck," Olivia said, her voice dropping slightly. Elena held her gaze. Then she smiled. Slow. Controlled. "I'm not pushing anything," she said. "I'm just adapting." The word hung in the air. Olivia didn't reply. She turned and walked out, closing the door behind her. This time, the silence that followed felt different. Not empty. Tense. Elena returned to the window, her expression fading back into calm. Step 1 was done. They still saw her as harmless, still underestimated her. Perfect. Her reflection stared back at her again, but now there was something sharper in her eyes. Something dangerous. Let's see how long you can keep pretending, she murmured. Outside, the wind picked up slightly, rustling the trees in the dark. Inside the mansion, nothing seemed to change. But the game had already begun. Elena Gray did not rush her next move. The morning after her return, she woke early, dressed simply, and left the mansion without waiting for anyone. No one stopped her. No one asked where she was going. That alone told her everything she needed to know about her position in this family. Today was her first day at school. In her past life, this was where humiliation truly began. This time, it would be different. The campus was large, modern, and filled with students who carried themselves with quiet confidence, the kind that came from wealth and status. Elena walked through the front gate with steady steps, ignoring the glances that followed her. She knew exactly what they were seeing. Not one of them. A transfer student. An outsider. A target. Inside the classroom, conversation slowed as she entered. A teacher stood at the front, flipping through a file. "This is Elena Gray," the teacher announced. "She just transferred here. I expect everyone to help her adjust." A few polite claps followed, but most of the room stayed quiet. Elena nodded slightly. "Hello. I hope we get along." Her voice was calm, controlled. No nervousness. No hesitation. That, more than anything, drew attention. "Take the empty seat in the middle," the teacher said. Elena walked down the aisle. Halfway there, a foot slid out. Fast. Intentional. Exactly like before. Elena saw it, but she didn't stop. Her shoe caught the foot, her body tilted forward, and she fell hard onto the floor. The impact echoed through the room, followed by a ripple of laughter. Right on cue. She stayed down for half a second longer than necessary, then slowly pushed herself up. "I'm so sorry," she said, looking directly at the girl who had tripped her. "I didn't see your foot there. Why was it in the aisle?" The laughter cut off. The girl, Vanessa Reed, leaned back in her chair, one eyebrow raised. She was known in school for her sharp tongue and her ability to control the social hierarchy. In Elena's past life, Vanessa had been Olivia's most loyal follower. "You're accusing me?" Vanessa said, her voice dripping with mock innocence. Elena tilted her head slightly. "I'm asking a question." Vanessa scoffed. "Or maybe you're just clumsy. That happens when you're not used to places like this." A few students chuckled. Elena didn't respond immediately. Instead, she brushed off her clothes and walked to her seat. Then, she placed something on the desk. A small device. Her phone. She tapped the screen once. A recording began to play. "Stick your foot out when she walks past." Vanessa's voice. Clear. Unmistakable. The room went silent. Vanessa's expression froze for a fraction of a second. Elena looked at her calmly. "I thought I might misunderstand the situation," she said. "So I recorded it. Just in case." No anger. No accusation. Just facts. The teacher frowned. "Vanessa, is this true?" Vanessa straightened, her composure snapping back into place. "That recording could be edited," she said quickly. "Anyone can fake something like that." Elena nodded. "That's possible." She turned to the class. "Then maybe we should ask the people who were standing near us earlier. They probably heard it too." A few students shifted uncomfortably. No one spoke, but their silence was enough. Vanessa's smile tightened. Elena sat down, finally. "I don't mind jokes," she added lightly. "But next time, try something less obvious." That was all. No shouting. No scene. And somehow it was worse. The atmosphere in the classroom changed after that. Whispers followed Elena, but not the same kind as before. Not dismissive. Not mocking. Curious. Cautious. At lunch, she sat alone at first. Then someone approached. "Mind if I sit here?" Elena looked up. A girl with soft features and steady eyes stood beside her tray. Emma Blake. In her past life, Emma had been the only person who treated her normally. Not out of pity. Not out of obligation. Just normally. "You can," Elena said. Emma sat down, studying her for a moment. That was impressive, she said. Most people would have just stayed quiet. Elena picked up her fork. Most people don't prepare. Emma smiled slightly. You expected that to happen? Elena met her gaze. I expected something. Emma didn't ask more. That was why Elena trusted her. Across the cafeteria, Vanessa sat with her group, her eyes fixed on Elena. She planned that, Vanessa muttered. She knew. One of the girls leaned closer. Should we tell Olivia? Vanessa hesitated, then nodded. Of course. This isn't something we handle alone. Later that day, Elena walked out of school. A black car was parked near the gate. She recognized it. Kai Blake stepped out. Tall, composed, the kind of presence that naturally drew attention. He was known not just for his family's influence, but for the quiet authority he carried. In her past life, Elena had looked at him with hope. Now, she looked at him like a variable. Are you Elena Gray? Kai asked. I am. He studied her briefly. I heard what happened today. Elena didn't react. News travels fast. It usually does when Vanessa Reed is involved, Kai replied. There was a pause. Then he said, You handled it well. A simple statement, but meaningful. Elena tilted her head slightly. Is that a compliment? Kai's lips curved faintly. An observation. She stepped closer, just enough to shift the distance between them. Then let me give you one in return, she said. You're not here just to observe. Kai didn't deny it. I'm curious, he said. About me? About what you're planning? Elena held his gaze. Then she smiled. Not warmly. Not coldly. Just enough to leave a question unanswered. Then keep watching, she said. She walked past him without waiting for a response. Kai turned slightly, watching her leave. For the first time, something in his expression changed. Interest. From a distance, inside a car across the street, another pair of eyes observed the entire scene. James Voss sat in the back seat, his posture relaxed, his gaze sharp. Is that her? His assistant asked. James didn't answer immediately. His eyes followed Elena as she disappeared into the crowd. Then he spoke. She's different from the reports. Should we look into her further? James leaned back slightly. No, he said. Let her play. A faint smile appeared. I want to see how far she goes. That evening, Elena returned to the gray mansion. As she stepped inside, she felt it immediately. The shift, the tension. Olivia was waiting in the living room, sitting perfectly still, smiling. But her eyes were no longer calm. You had quite a day, Olivia said softly. Elena set her bag down. I did. Olivia stood up slowly. You embarrassed Vanessa, she continued. Elena met her gaze. She embarrassed herself. Silence stretched between them. Then Olivia took a step closer. You're starting to stand out, she said. That's dangerous. Elena didn't move. Only for people who have something to hide, she replied. For a split second, Olivia's expression cracked. Just slightly, but enough. And Elena saw it. The first real fracture. The first sign that this time, things would not go the same way. Elena Gray did not attack Olivia directly. Not yet. Instead, she chose something far more dangerous. She let doubt spread where trust once stood. The next morning at school, she arrived early and walked straight into the administrative office. She didn't ask permission, didn't hesitate, and didn't act like someone who didn't belong. She simply placed a document on the desk and asked the staff to verify it. It was a partial record from the hospital years ago, something she had memorized in her past life, but only now decided to bring into play. Not enough to expose the truth, but enough to raise questions if it reached the right ears. By midday, the rumor had already begun circulating. Not loudly, not officially, but in whispers. The Gray family adoption? The older daughter something doesn't match. It was subtle, carefully planted, and impossible to trace back to Elena. She didn't spread it herself. She only made sure the right people saw the right piece of information and let curiosity do the rest. Vanessa Reed was the first to react. As someone who thrived on controlling social narratives, she immediately tried to shut it down. It's fake, she told her group, her tone sharp, her confidence forced. People like Elena love attention. She's making things up. But even as she spoke, she kept glancing around, noticing that fewer people were laughing along. Elena didn't confront her. She didn't need to. Instead, during lunch, she sat with Emma Blake as usual, calmly eating while conversations buzzed around them. Emma leaned slightly closer and whispered, "Did you start this?" Elena didn't look up. "I didn't say anything," she replied. Emma studied her for a moment, then smiled faintly. "That's even worse." Across the cafeteria, Kai Blake watched the shifting atmosphere. He had grown up around power and deception, and he recognized patterns quickly. Rumors didn't spread like this without direction. His gaze moved from the whispering students to Olivia, who was sitting at her usual table, still smiling, still composed, but her hand tightened slightly around her fork. That small movement didn't escape him. Later that afternoon, Kai approached Elena near the hallway lockers. "You're changing the narrative," he said directly, not bothering with small talk. Elena closed her lockers slowly and turned to face him. "Am I?" Kai held her gaze. "Rumors don't appear out of nowhere." "They don't," Elena agreed. "But they don't survive without reason either." Kai stepped closer, lowering his voice. "If this is about Olivia, you should be careful. She's not as harmless as she looks." Elena's lips curved slightly. "I know exactly what she is." There was something in her tone that made Kai pause. It wasn't speculation. It was certainty. "Then what are you trying to prove?" he asked. Elena tilted her head. That something shouldn't be taken at face value. She walked past him before he could respond, leaving him standing there with more questions than answers. That evening, the tension followed her back to the gray mansion. This time, the silence inside wasn't indifferent. It was watchful. As Elena stepped into the living room, she saw Olivia already there, standing by the window. The moment Elena entered, Olivia turned around slowly. "You've been busy," Olivia said, her voice still soft, but lacking its usual warmth. Elena set her bag down. "I always am." Olivia walked toward her, her steps measured. "Interesting rumors are going around today," she continued. "About our family." Elena met her gaze without hesitation. "Are they wrong?" For the first time, Olivia didn't immediately respond. Her eyes narrowed slightly, just for a second, before she smiled again. "You should be careful with what you imply," Olivia said. "Words can destroy things." Elena stepped closer, closing the distance between them just enough to make the conversation feel more personal, more dangerous. "So can lies," she replied quietly. The air between them tightened. "You think you can replace me?" Olivia asked, her voice dropping. Elena didn't blink. "I'm not replacing anyone," she said. "I'm just removing what doesn't belong." That was the first time Olivia's composure truly cracked. It was brief, almost invisible, but it was there. A flicker of anger, sharp and controlled. "You're making a mistake," Olivia said. Elena smiled slightly. "No, I made a mistake once. I won't do it again." Before Olivia could respond, footsteps approached. Lucas Gray entered the room, his presence immediately shifting the atmosphere. He looked between the two of them, sensing the tension. "What's going on?" he asked. "Nothing," Olivia answered quickly, her expression already back to normal. Lucas didn't look convinced. His gaze moved to Elena, searching for something, then back to Olivia. "I heard something at school today," he said slowly. "About us." Silence. Olivia's smile remained, but her eyes sharpened. "People talk," she said. "It doesn't mean anything." Lucas frowned slightly. "Maybe, but it's strange how it started right after she arrived." The implication hung in the air. Elena didn't defend herself. She simply looked at him. "Does it matter when it started?" she asked calmly, "or whether it's true?" Lucas froze for a moment. That question wasn't something he expected. Olivia stepped in immediately. "Of course it matters," she said firmly. "Don't let baseless rumors affect your judgment." Lucas didn't answer right away. His gaze lingered on Elena again, longer this time. Something had shifted. He didn't trust the rumors, but he didn't fully trust Olivia either. And that was enough. Elena saw it clearly. The crack had formed. She turned and walked away without another word, leaving the two of them behind. Upstairs in her room, she stood by the window again, looking out into the dark. Step by step, she didn't need to win everything at once. She only needed to break their certainty. And once doubt took root, it would grow on its own. The banquet was announced 3 days in advance, and that was more than enough time for Elena Gray to prepare. It was hosted under the Gray family name, a formal event attended by business partners, investors, and influential families. For Richard Gray, it was about maintaining status. For Olivia Gray, it was about reclaiming control. For Elena, it was the perfect stage. She didn't ask to attend. She simply appeared that evening, dressed in a fitted black gown that contrasted sharply with Olivia's soft white dress. The difference was intentional. One looked untouchable, the other looked pure. Elena didn't need to say anything. The contrast spoke for itself. As she stepped into the main hall, several guests turned to look. Some recognized her from recent rumors. Others didn't know who she was, but noticed her anyway. That was enough. Attention was the first step. Olivia approached almost immediately, her smile flawless, her posture elegant. "You decided to come," she said softly, her tone warm enough for anyone nearby to hear. Elena returned the smile. "It's a family event. I belong here, don't I?" The words were light, but the meaning wasn't. Olivia's eyes flickered for a brief moment before she recovered. "Of course," Olivia replied. "Just don't make things awkward." Elena tilted her head slightly. "I won't. That depends on you." They stood there for a second longer than necessary, both smiling, both completely aware that the game had already started. Across the room, Kai Blake observed quietly, a glass of wine in his hand. He had been invited as both a family ally and Olivia's rumored fiancé. But tonight, his attention wasn't on Olivia. It kept returning to Elena. Something about her presence felt deliberate, calculated, and dangerous. Near the far end of the hall, a man stood slightly apart from the crowd, his expression unreadable, his posture relaxed but controlled. James Voss, a name that carried weight in every room he entered. CEO, strategist, and someone no one dared to underestimate. He wasn't officially part of the Gray family, but his presence here meant one thing. He was watching. And he rarely watched without purpose. The dinner progressed smoothly on the surface. Conversations flowed, glasses were refilled, and polite laughter filled the air. Elena didn't force herself into any discussion. She moved carefully, speaking when necessary, listening more than talking. Every step she took was measured. Then the drinks were served. Olivia had already planned this part. Earlier, in a quiet corner near the service area, she had spoken to one of the staff members. The instructions were simple. A specific glass. A specific target. Elena. The tray was prepared. The moment approached. As the server moved through the crowd, Olivia watched closely, her fingers tightening slightly around her own glass. This was the cleanest way. No confrontation. No trace. Elena saw everything. Not directly, but enough. The way Olivia's gaze followed the tray. The way the server avoided eye contact. The slight tension in the air. It was the same setup as before. The same method that had almost worked in her previous life. Almost. This time, she didn't avoid it. She stepped forward instead. The tray reached her. Elena picked up a glass. At the same moment, Olivia also lifted hers. For a brief second, their eyes met. Then Elena moved. Smooth. Natural. She shifted slightly, as if adjusting her position, and her hand brushed against Olivia's wrist. The glasses switched, so subtly that no one reacted, except one person. James Voss. From across the room, his gaze sharpened. He had been watching the entire sequence. The preparation. The timing. The execution. And now, the reversal. Interesting. To family, Olivia said, raising her glass with a smile. Elena mirrored the gesture. To family. They drank. A few seconds passed. Nothing. Then, Olivia's expression changed. It started small. A slight pause. A blink that lasted too long. Her hand tightened around the glass. Elena set hers down calmly. "What's wrong?" she asked, her tone light, almost concerned. Olivia didn't answer immediately. Her breathing shifted. Uneven. The guests nearby began to notice. "Olivia!" someone called out. She took a step back. Her balance faltered. And then she collapsed. The room erupted into chaos. People rushed forward. Voices overlapped. Someone called for help. Richard Gray pushed through the crowd, his expression finally breaking into something real. "What happened?" he demanded. No one answered. Elena stepped back slightly, giving space, her expression composed but attentive. Kai moved closer, his eyes scanning the scene quickly. Then he looked at Elena. She met his gaze. Calm. Too calm. Something clicked. Minutes later, the situation stabilized just enough for questions to begin. "She just drank," someone started. "The wine," another added. Richard turned sharply. "Check it." The staff hesitated. Elena spoke then, her voice steady but clear enough to carry. "Maybe we should check the cameras." The room quieted. "Cameras?" Richard repeated. Elena nodded slightly. "For security. Events like this usually have them." Before anyone could respond, a voice cut in from the side. "They do." All eyes turned. James Voss stepped forward, his presence instantly commanding attention. "I had my team install additional coverage for tonight," he continued, his tone calm, almost casual. "For safety reasons." No one questioned it. No one dared. Richard frowned. "Then show it." James didn't move immediately. His gaze shifted briefly to Elena, then back to the crowd. "Of course," he said. A screen was brought in. The footage played. Clear. Precise. The tray. The server. Olivia's glance. And then, the moment. The switch. But from this angle, it showed something else. Olivia signaling the server. Silence filled the room. Heavy. Unavoidable. Richard's face darkened. "Explain," he said, his voice low. No one spoke. Because there was nothing to say. Olivia, barely conscious, couldn't defend herself. And the truth was already on display. Elena stood there, watching it all unfold. Exactly as planned. Almost. Her eyes shifted briefly toward James. He was still watching her. Not surprised. Not impressed. Evaluating. As if this entire event had been a test. Their gazes met for a second. And in that moment, Elena understood something clearly. She wasn't the only one playing this game. And James Voss had been watching from the very beginning. The fallout from the banquet didn't settle quietly. It spread fast, controlled at first, then impossible to contain. Olivia Gray was rushed to the hospital that night, her condition stabilized within hours, but the damage to her image had already begun. The footage never went public, but within the circle that mattered, business partners, investors, families with influence, everyone knew enough. Olivia had been exposed to attempting something she couldn't deny, and worse, she had failed. Elena didn't visit the hospital. She didn't need to. Instead, the next morning, she received a message. No greeting. No explanation. Just a time and a location. James Voss. She arrived exactly on time. The building was one of the most secure corporate headquarters in the city, owned entirely by Voss Holdings. Elena walked in without hesitation, gave her name at the front desk, and was escorted upstairs immediately. No delays. No questions. That alone said more than words. Inside the office, James stood by the window, his back to her, looking down at the city below. He didn't turn right away. "You handled the banquet well," he said finally. Elena didn't step further into the room. "You set it up," she replied. That made him turn. His expression didn't change, but his eyes sharpened slightly. "Explain." "The cameras," Elena said calmly. "Too precise. Too convenient. You weren't just observing. You were waiting." James studied her for a moment, then walked closer. "And you still went through with it. I needed the result. And if I hadn't intervened..." Elena met his gaze. "Then I would have created another way." A brief silence followed. Then James smiled. Not warm. Not friendly. Interested. "Good," he said. "I don't work with people who rely on luck." There it was. Not an invitation. An offer. "Why me?" Elena asked. James didn't hesitate. "Because you're willing to destroy what you came from." He walked past her, stopping just close enough for his presence to feel deliberate. "And because you didn't ask for help." Elena didn't respond immediately. "Let's not pretend this is charity," she said. "What do you want?" James picked up a document from his desk and placed it in front of her. "A partnership," he said. "Publicly, It will be framed as an engagement. Elena looked down at the paper. A contract. Terms. Conditions. Mutual benefit. No illusions. You want access to the Gray family, she said. I want control over assets they're about to lose, James corrected. You want revenge. I want leverage. This arrangement serves both. Elena flipped through the pages quickly. Everything was clear. No hidden clauses. No deception. That was what made it dangerous. You're honest, she said. I'm efficient, James replied. Another silence. Then Elena closed the contract. I'll sign, she said. James didn't look surprised. You didn't even negotiate. I don't need to, Elena answered. I know what I'm trading. She picked up the pen and signed her name without hesitation. James watched her do it, his gaze steady, calculating. Then let's be clear about one thing, he said. I don't trust you. Elena placed the pen down. You shouldn't. And you shouldn't trust me. I don't. That was enough. No promises. No misunderstandings. Just a deal. The announcement came within 48 hours. Elena Gray and James Voss were engaged. The reaction was immediate. Shock. Confusion. Speculation. Inside the Gray mansion, it hit harder than anywhere else. Richard Gray slammed the newspaper onto the table, his expression dark. What is this? He demanded. Elena stood across from him, calm, composed. Exactly what it says. You think you can make decisions like this without consulting me? Richard's voice rose. Elena didn't flinch. You've never consulted me about anything. That shut him up for a second. Lucas stood nearby, his eyes moving between them. Is this real? He asked. Elena turned to him. It is. Lucas frowned. You just met him. And, Elena replied, he's not someone you can control. Elena finished for him. Neither am I. Lucas didn't respond. Because he knew that was true. Olivia wasn't there. She had returned from the hospital that morning, but she hadn't come downstairs. The humiliation, the exposure, the loss of control, it had all hit at once. Elena didn't go to see her. She waited, and Olivia came to her. That night, Elena heard the door open behind her as she stood by the window again. You're engaged, Olivia said. Her voice was steady. Too steady. Elena turned slowly. I am. Olivia stepped closer, her eyes locked onto Elena's face. You think this changes anything? Elena didn't answer immediately. Then she smiled. It already has. Olivia's hand tightened slightly at her side. You're using him. Elena tilted her head. And what do you think he's doing? That stopped Olivia. For the first time, she looked uncertain. People like James Voss don't make random decisions, Olivia said. I know. Then you're walking into a trap. Elena stepped forward, closing the distance between them again, her gaze sharp. No, she said quietly. I'm walking into a game. Olivia's expression shifted. Anger. Fear. Something unstable. You're going to regret this, she said. Elena held her gaze. No, she replied. You are. Olivia didn't respond. She turned and walked out, but this time, her steps weren't steady. The next phase began immediately. Elena didn't wait. With James behind her, doors opened that had always been closed. Information flowed faster. Connections shifted. Deals that once excluded her now required her presence. Vanessa Reed tried to stay relevant. She approached Elena at a corporate event 2 days later, her smile forced, her tone careful. You've changed circles quickly, she said. Elena looked at her. You didn't. Vanessa's smile tightened. We could work together. Elena stepped closer, her voice low enough that only Vanessa could hear. You already tried to work against me. That was a mistake. Elena cut in. Yes, it was. Vanessa hesitated. That hesitation cost her. Because Elena had already decided. Within a week, Vanessa lost her position in the company she relied on. Quietly. Efficiently. No direct link to Elena. But everyone understood. She had been removed. Used. Discarded. That night, Elena stood alone again, looking out over the city. Everything was moving faster now. More dangerous. More exposed. Her reflection in the glass didn't look like the girl who had returned to this house days ago. She looked like someone else entirely. Behind her, the door opened. James stepped inside. "You're adapting well," he said. Elena didn't turn. "So are you." He walked closer, stopping beside her. "Tell me," he said. "Do you regret it?" Elena's gaze stayed on the city. "No," she answered. A brief pause. Then she added, "Do you?" James looked at her, his expression unreadable. "No." Silence settled between them. Not comfortable. Not tense. Just aware. Because both of them knew. This wasn't a partnership built on trust. It was built on ambition. And neither of them planned to lose. The final move didn't begin with noise. It began with numbers. Elena Gray sat across from James Voss in his office. A series of reports spread across the table between them. These weren't rumors or assumptions anymore. These were confirmed financial records tied directly to Richard Gray's private investments, hidden accounts, leveraged assets, and deals that depended heavily on unstable partners. James had obtained everything through his network, and now Elena was looking at the exact structure that had once crushed her without her ever understanding how. "This is where it breaks," James said, tapping lightly on a section of the report. 3 subsidiaries holding most of his liquidity. If these collapse, everything above them follows. Elena didn't respond immediately. She traced the flow of transactions with her eyes, connecting each layer. "And the trigger?" "Already in motion," James replied. "We've been buying influence quietly. Once we pull out, others will follow." Elena leaned back slightly. "Then it won't just hurt him. It'll destroy him." James looked at her. "That's the point." A brief silence followed. Then Elena nodded. "Do it." There was no hesitation. No second thoughts. The collapse began within 72 hours. At first, it looked like a market shift. A minor withdrawal here, a delayed payment there. But then contracts started failing. Investors pulled out. Partner companies froze transactions. One by one, the pillars holding Richard Gray's financial structure began to crack. Inside the Gray mansion, the atmosphere changed overnight. Phones rang constantly. Staff moved faster. Conversations dropped into whispers the moment Elena entered a room. Richard locked himself in his study for hours, emerging only to make calls that grew more aggressive each time. "Fix it," he demanded repeatedly. "I don't care how. Fix it." But no one could, because the system wasn't failing on its own. It was being dismantled. Lucas was the first to confront Elena. He found her in the hallway late that evening, his expression tight, his usual composure gone. "This isn't a coincidence," he said. "The timing, the scale this is targeted." Elena didn't deny it. "Maybe it is," she replied. Lucas stepped closer. "Did you do this?" Elena met his gaze calmly. "What do you think?" Lucas hesitated. That hesitation was everything. Because part of him already knew the answer. "You're destroying the family," he said. Elena's expression didn't change. "No," she corrected. "I'm revealing what it really is." Lucas ran a hand through his hair, frustration clear now. "You could have handled this differently." Elena tilted her head slightly. "How?" "Talk to him. Negotiate. There are other ways." "He never gave me one," Elena interrupted, her voice steady but sharp. "Not once." Lucas stopped. Because he couldn't argue with that. "Then at least stop this before it goes too far," he said, his tone lower now. "There's still time." Elena looked at him for a long second. Then she said quietly, "It already went too far." Lucas didn't respond. He stepped back slowly, the realization settling in. He had waited too long to question anything. And now, there was nothing left to fix. Olivia didn't wait. She came to Elena directly. This time, there was no mask, no softness, no control. Elena heard the door slam open behind her as she stood in her room. She turned just as Olivia stepped inside, her expression unstable, her eyes sharp with something close to desperation. "You did this," Olivia said. Not a question. A statement. Elena didn't deny it. "Yes." Olivia let out a short, disbelieving laugh. "You think this makes you better than me?" Elena walked closer, stopping just within reach. "No," she said. "It makes me stronger." Olivia's hands trembled slightly. "You're ruining everything." Elena's gaze didn't waver. "Everything you built was never yours." That was it. The final break. Olivia stepped forward suddenly, her control snapping completely as she reached out, trying to grab Elena, to hit her, to do anything that would stop this. Elena didn't move. She didn't need to. The door opened again. Olivia! James Voss's voice cut through the room, calm but absolute. Olivia froze. Slowly she turned. James stood at the entrance, his presence alone enough to shift the entire situation. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't step forward aggressively. But the authority in his tone was enough. "This isn't how you handle loss," he said. Olivia stared at him, her breathing uneven. "You're behind this too," she said. James didn't deny it. "Yes." Silence fell again. Heavy. Final. Olivia's shoulders dropped slightly, not in acceptance, but in collapse. "You both think you've won," she said quietly. Elena looked at her. "No," she replied. "I think it's over." Olivia laughed again, but there was nothing stable left in it now. "It's never over," she said. "Not for people like us." Then she turned and walked out. Not defeated, but broken. By the end of the week, it was finished. Richard Gray's company declared financial restructuring. His influence collapsed almost overnight. The same people who once stood beside him stepped away, distancing themselves quickly. Inside the mansion, the silence returned. But this time it was empty. Not controlled. Not watchful. Just empty. Elena stood in the living room one last time, looking around at the place she had once tried so hard to belong to. Now it meant nothing. Footsteps approached behind her. "James." "It's done," he said. Elena nodded. "I know." A pause. Then he asked, "Do you feel different?" Elena thought about it. All the pain, all the anger, all the years she had spent wanting something this place would never give her. Then she answered, "No." James studied her. "That's because this was never about them," he said. "It was about you." Elena turned slightly, meeting his gaze. "And now?" she asked. James stepped closer, stopping beside her, his voice lower now, more direct. "Now you decide what comes next." Another silence. But this one wasn't heavy. It was open. Elena looked forward again, her reflection faintly visible in the glass. She had taken everything back. Not just her name, not just her place. Control, power, choice. And this time, no one would take it from her again. "I already have," she said quietly. James's lips curved slightly. "Good," he replied. Because whatever came next, they would face it on equal ground. Not as enemies, not as strangers, but as two people who had chosen the same path and survived it. Elena Gray didn't just take revenge, she rewrote her fate. From a discarded daughter to a woman no one could control, she proved that power isn't given, it's taken. But in the end, the real question remains, was it revenge that saved her, or did it change her into something even more dangerous? If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more intense, dramatic journeys like this. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next story.